Good morning. My name is Ruby Stemmle, and I am the CEO of EcoLatinos and your facilitator today. Welcome to Dig Deeper: Essential Tools for a Climate Resilient Park. A couple of housekeeping rules. This session is being recorded and will be shared with everybody later. All attendees are muted by the host. Please use the chat box for your questions. You can update your name and your pronoun and organization by hovering over your image to show the menu. And if you have any technical issues, please message the host in the chat box. I am delighted to introduce you to the presenters. Don Taft, City Arborist, Manager of Environmental Programs from the City of Hyattsville, and Marita Roos, Landscape Programs Director and Director of the Neighborhood Design Center, sorry. And ladies, you have the floor.
Morning, everyone. We are going to talk today about a park in the City of Hyattsville, Magruder Park. Basically, the city has and will continue to experience climate change and ever-changing neighborhood demographics. So today we are going to present on lessons learned from a planning process from 2018-19, as well as volunteer restoration efforts that began over 15 years ago and continue today. Next slide. Magruder Park is located centrally in the city of Hyattsville and has been an essential part of leisure and recreation for many years. The park is currently under the process of renaming due to controversial clauses that were included in its donation back in 1927, which prohibited its use by people of color. Today, its residents span the spectrum of cultural and racial diversity. It's a favorite in the city and is utilized on a daily basis by residents and area locals for a myriad of outdoor activities that span from jogging and exercise to sports such as football, baseball, and soccer. So as we took a look at the park, it was apparent that there were some upgrades needed. And so in consideration of the vast array of residents in the community, we really wanted to know, was the park sufficient as it was, or were there other needs and wants from the community that we could gather? So with that in mind, we sent out an RFP and we selected the Neighborhood Design Center, and they took a user-centric approach to the redesign of the park. And so Marita is going to talk a little bit about the Neighborhood Design Center, and then we're going to watch a fabulous video created by the City of Hyattsville videographers that will really just capture the full picture of this project. Next slide, Marita.
Thank you, Dawn. So Neighborhood Design Center is a Maryland-based nonprofit. We've been working for over 50 years with communities, towns, and cities in Baltimore and Prince George's County. Our mission is to build equitable, community-centered public spaces in low-resourced neighborhoods. We are right across the street, literally, from City Hall, and we know Hyattsville very well, so we were pleased to have been selected to work on the visioning process for Magruder Park. We were selected so that we could bring an approach based on equitable access to public space, derived from a process that is inclusive as possible. With our approach is community driven. We feel the community is the experts for their own places and towns. They are the authority. What we do is facilitate the process so that all voices are drawn into the conversation. one of our mantras, if you will, is move at the speed of trust. This helps ensure that nobody gets left behind and the time allows for difficult conversations to unfold. Space is given to people who are hard to reach, and we feel that this has been particularly important during the time of the pandemic, which has been difficult to reach everyone that we would like to reach in the way that we typically do. So for now, we have this video, so let's get going with that.
Rachel's going to put the link to the video in the chat box. We are starting a little way in and we'll end a little before the end of the credits. So if you're interested, you can pick up the link to see the full video. Great.
We're in Magruder Park, which is an enormous, beautiful park in the city of Hyattsville, and it really acts as the living room for the city. The Neighborhood Design Center was brought in to really study and understand how users of the park are spending their time. And the reason for that is we needed to know that to be able to create some options that really encapsulated what the residents of Hyattsville wanted to see in their places and spaces.
We're invited to work with the City of Hyattsville on a plan for the future of Magruder Park. So we did several sets of observations. We did observations where we stood in prescribed places and we counted how many people passed by and whether they were on bikes or walking their dogs. One of our aims with the study was to work with as many people as we possibly could because we felt that engaging with people from all walks of life and all perspectives would bring voices to the park that were really necessary in terms of what people wanted for their quality of life and how the park can support that.
I came to the park actually to bring my grandson. And I came because I wanted to get some air. I just wanted to get out the house myself. I'm a person that loves water and I love trees and the beauty of the trees, and walking through the park is like, wow, you know, it's a beautiful park.
So we were so pleased to be brought in by the city to work on this because we feel that the city of Hyattsville is really invested in its places and its people, and they're willing to consider innovation. So we're very excited about some of the environmental work that we see happening here in terms of the maintenance practices and the rain gardens and the plantings, getting rid of some of the invasive plants. It's all really exciting and very sustainably oriented.
We need to understand who's using our park and what they want. And so it's evident from the Neighborhood Design Center study that people want environmentally friendly practices. They want to be able to enjoy the outdoors. That's all the more reason for us to really concentrate our efforts on caring for the natural environment. I mean, to have something like this in the middle of the city is just, it's amazing. It's a blessing to have such a wonderful park. So I was pretty impressed when I came to work here. Called my mother. It's my dream job, it's my dream job. I get really excited when I can teach somebody what a rain garden is, why are rain gardens important. You know, why is it important that we take on this water and filter it from the roadside before it gets to the Anacostia River? So just being able to educate people on the environmental impact is truly something I love to do. So we have an organic field maintenance program here in Hyattsville, and we use things like this natural squid. We also use crab and sea kelp. This is a program where we are trying to show that it is possible to maintain ball fields and football fields with organic materials.
The thing that gets me excited about the work that I do is to be able to see people using these places in a way that is creative, is fun, maybe sometimes in ways that we hadn't intended, but it's always a way that supports their being and their quality of life.
So the park is kind of like a central location, and because our studio is currently not open due to COVID, the park just gives us the opportunity to come together.
We definitely are in literally the parking lot. We had to get creative with the way to be able to still accommodate our dancers. This is a great park. I love how spacious it is. I love the fact that they offer so many activities that you can do. The fact that we are fortunate enough to be able to use the park to host our classes.
Participants in our workshops really focused on the fact that the park is beautiful and natural as it is. And we heard time and again that it was important for us to keep that. People really wanted to know that anything that happened in the park was going to enhance and not hurt the natural environment, especially being so adjacent to the Anacostia.
I think it was really important for the Neighborhood Design Center to do this study so that we could better know what the interests are from the residents, and I think it just reinforced the fact that people are interested in the outdoor environment.
The river is undergoing a transformation. It's becoming cleaner. This year it's cleaner than it's ever been, and part of the reason is because people are starting to really respect the floodplain and the streams, and they want to take care of it, they want to preserve it.
We always feel like part of being eco-friendly is making sure that people have access to nature and have some educational opportunities. So part of our recommendations were really making sure that there was programming and signage that spoke to all ages and made sure that people really understood where they were and why it was valuable.
I think that environmental awareness comes with all kinds of education. You know, science and biology, and so having kids out experiencing the outdoors is not just an environmental experience, but it's an educational experience. And so I want to make sure that this park is here for generations to come.
Okay, we're going to switch back to the slides now. Can you, move forward a couple? Thank you. So as we started our process of collecting data and talking with people from the community, we wanted to focus really on values, because oftentimes when you hear from people about what they value about a place or what they think they want to see, sometimes hear, oh, I want this, or I want a dog park, or I want a place to meditate, and it feels like those things conflict. But if you try and go deeper and understand what the shared values are of a place, and try and stay committed to deeper questions such as, do you feel welcome here? What are your barriers to feeling welcomed? What would it take to make this your park? These are some essential questions that you can use to kind of get at the core of these shared values and help people move forward with a vision for the park. Next slide. So we wanted to know, can this park be programmed for a sustainable future given its location in the floodplain, because large areas of the park are really not that usable after a rainstorm or a large event. So we wanted to understand what people wanted and whether some of these shared values, such as a beautiful place to experience nature, could facilitate this programming for the future of the park. Next slide. We had a great project team. Whoops. All right. Yeah, great project team. Landscape architects for Bradley Site Design, a local woman-owned firm. We have a Rivera group for Spanish-speaking facilitation for conversations, meetings, and surveys. And then, of course, our main partner was the City of Hyattsville, and that's Mayor Candace Hollingsworth on the right. Next slide. So it's important to create this baseline of knowledge about the park through the surveys and observations. We use that to capture demographic data, as well as how people were using the park, how they were getting there, and so forth. So we use that then to kind of spur the rest of our conversations and observations. Next slide. We relied on the city's website, Speak Up Hyattsville, which was ongoing, to host a survey about park use and also to draw attention to the planning process. Rivera Group, who you see here on the right, was a regular presence in the park. They intercepted people in the park, asked a series of questions. So we were able to not only create some baseline data, but also interest people in the process and get them to come to future conversations. Next slide. The GEL Public Life Tools was our basis for social space surveying. These tools are available online and free of charge. And so we use these to understand how people were using the park and how we could better foster social interaction. Next slide. And you saw us using the tools in the video, so I won't go into these in real detail, but we tried to randomize things as much as possible. We set up observation stations, rotated our observers through those stations. Next slide. Thanks. We have schedules. You can get all these from the GEL Public Life Tools website if you choose to use these. So we used some different survey methods as well as observation schedule for 4 different times. We sampled evening, morning, afternoon, and weekends. Next slide. And you saw us with the clipboards, clicking off how many people we saw and what age and gender they were and how they were biking or whatever. But this was a really interesting one, the stationary activities, where we just observed an area and saw how people were using it. And what we saw was that people were using the park spaces in some really unintended ways, as you saw with a group of people that were using the parking lot for Zumba classes. So, which is great, but maybe there could be a space that was a little more dedicated to this type of activity. So it told us a lot about what we needed for the future park. Next slide, please. So as we wrapped up our observations, we started a series of community conversations. We invited people into these via signs, via the city's website. So we had 4 conversations with groups, teens, Spanish speakers only, adults, and then a Saturday class that was open to everybody. And we also had a conversation with the Public Works Department because they knew more than anybody about how the park is being used and maintained. Next slide. The conversations were facilitated by 2 team members, and they lasted 60 to 90 minutes. We spoke to more than 100 people about their experience with the park, whether it was friendly, comfortable, fun, they felt safe, they were engaged, what they would enjoy, what they wanted to see differently. Having a place to enjoy nature was at the top of the wish list. Next slide. So this is just a kind of summing up of some of our observations. We noted that people really did like the park. They really, environmental or outdoor experience was really important, but that fewer women used the park than we expected from the demographics of Hyattsville. So that was something that we wanted to consider. as we developed programs and activities. Next slide. So we used a visioning workshop to tease out more of what people wanted to see in the park. Our participants were people who knew about the process from the signs, from the previous engagement, from the website. They could vote on preference images. They sat in groups to kind of sketch out what their Magruder Park is on a map, how they use the park, and what they would like to see. Next slide. And so the outcome was 2 alternative plans for the park, which were voted on in City Hall in ballot boxes, or you could vote online or at the rec center. And the preferred plan not only created spaces for lots of different activities, as well as a central promenade for pedestrians and cyclists, but it really emphasized environmental programs for the park. It moved those kind of front and center and activated the natural areas with improved trails, signage, and environmental programs. Next slide. So we decided to break this up a little bit with a Jamboard. So would like you to go to the chat box and click on the link if you would. And you can use the tools on the left-hand side, sorry, of the Jamboard and add in sticky notes. Let me see if I can do that from where I am. I'll just give a few minutes for people to access the Jamboard. Yeah, the sticky note tool is just below the arrow, I think, and you can create a new sticky note and you can just put in something, whatever you like, on how you would go about meeting with hard to access groups.
Marita, I'm just gonna bust in quickly. The link to the Jamboard is in the chat. If you click on it, that's how you access it.
Doesn't look like people are seeing the link.
Yeah, I think that the Jamboard link was sent just to panelists. Can you please repost it, Rachel, to all participants?
Yep, give me a second. I'm doing it right now. Apologize for that. Oh, what is it? I'm sorry, guys. It's my copy and paste is not working for some reason. Second. There we go. And now it should be accessible.
I think we're still pretty good on time with this, so we can just leave it a few minutes. Oh, this is great. Starting to get populated. Definitely on the free babysitting. We, in fact, had childcare at all of our community conversations. So we had, first of all, tons of kids, which was really fun. And second, we got a lot more participation from residents in the community.
Knock on doors.
Yeah, these are great suggestions. And ask the kids what they want, definitely. generally teenagers can be pretty tough to access. So we tried to meet them where they were. We went to the teen center to meet with the teenagers. We held a special after hours, group for them. We met with, tried to, met with kids on the basketball court and so forth.
Members of the city council were active in the research at the park.
Food and snacks, definitely. We had pizza at every single
Pizza.
meeting. There was never a piece left.
Free babysitting. Did you guys have something like that? Did you have an activity where you had
Well, all the
support?
conversations we had childcare. So we had, people who were actively engaged with the kids while their parents could participate in the sessions. But typically what happened was the kids ran out and, used the dot voting to vote on their preferences for activities in the park and help their parents draw the maps. So of course the kids want to, they want to vote and give their opinions too. All right, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we're at 26.5 minutes, so we can go back to the slides anytime. And we can put that up at the end, I think. And it's
Okay,
also
so resilience at Magruder was focused around these areas: outreach and education, stormwater management, woodland restoration, and organic field maintenance. Next slide. But first we have to recruit and maintain those individual volunteers. And one of the ways that we do that is through our community service manager, Colleen Estes. She's an amazing person, and she has been developing partnerships and relationships for volunteer activities for many, many years. And so partnerships is one of the biggest things. Local businesses, nonprofits, local and state government. One of the things that is new is individual businesses have recently started suggesting or encouraging environmental outreach. And so we've been getting some local businesses call us and say, we want to help. What can we do? University of Maryland is definitely one of our greatest partnerships. We get every semester we get students who help out in Magruder Park. For each semester, I get them for every Saturday of the semester. We also have a group called Roots and Shoots. We have a recent forest school that developed by a resident or a neighbor who developed this group of young 5 to 9-year-old kids. And they have actually adopted a piece of the park to maintain and remove invasives and plant natives. So that's an exciting partnership there. Of course, advertising, we use all the Facebook, Twitter, we use the local internet, I forget what you call it, local listserv. And we have a monthly report that goes out, or a monthly flyer for Hyattsville that goes out. Another way that we maintain our volunteers is through project variety and diversity. We really try to have just a wide range of activities for volunteers so that we can meet the needs of everyone. We also have a staff service day where we get our Hyattsville administrative staff out of the office and away from their desks and working on helping to improve our outdoor areas and the environment. And lastly, we have a yearly appreciation dinner where we invite all of our volunteers and just kind of, it's our opportunity to really reach out and thank them for all the work that they do, helping to keep Hyattsville the amazing place that it is. Next slide. So outreach and education, of course, is a big part of it. We recently had tree planting and educational workshops with support and partnering with the Department of the Environment. I have a list from Prince George's County Department of the Environment, if anyone's interested, that shows all the different programs that they support. And I would encourage you to reach out to surrounding municipalities and have them join in your educational programs. One of the recent programs is a grant through the Chesapeake Bay Trust for stormwater stewardship. And we typically will put our advertisement out for workshops in English and Spanish, but this will be the first time that we've ever actually offered these workshops in Spanish, and I'm very excited about that. We'll be working and partnering with a nonprofit called Watershed Defenders on the Spanish translation, and that will those translations will be able to be used by Prince George's Department of the Environment for future training of the Spanish community. We'll be sponsoring 10 master watershed stewards through partnering with the Anacostia Watershed. We'll be planting trees in the right-of-way, but we'll also be planting trees on private land, a place where with the current environment, we have been losing a lot of trees, and replacing on private property is a very important process right now. One of the other things that I'm excited about that we're working with Department of the Environment is this phenology study. So the residents that we plant private trees, we will be inviting them to participate in this study where they'll be tracking the bud break and the leaf drop on the trees that they have planted, so that we can provide that information to our local scientists, so that we can start tracking, you know, what is our diversity going to look like in the future? What kind of trees do we need to plant? What's going to survive in this new and upcoming environment? Next slide. So we manage stormwater, and here you'll see some arrows over on the left-hand side of the screen, tennis courts and the parking lot. We partnered with the Clean Water Partnership, and they installed a few bioretention and rain gardens there. And then above, where you see near the stormwater wetland, there's a parking area where we installed some rain gardens. Next slide. So this is a picture. It's pretty exciting. In order to install this rain garden, we recruited volunteers from a local college. They were doing a landscape maintenance class, and next slide. Here we're showing students how to manage the root, circling and girdling roots, and make sure that this tree is sustainable as we get it planted. Next slide. This is a picture of us almost complete. Next slide. This is a picture of our rain garden installed. This is probably 2 years in. And these gardens, although Magruder is in the floodplain, and although they don't support major flooding, these rain gardens actually capture so much sediment. And we were so happy with how how successful this garden was, that we planted another one, and you can see it in the background over to the left. So we did a second rain garden, basically with the same concept of volunteers for the installation. Next slide. Woodland Restoration. So this again goes back to keeping a variety of volunteer activities. Trail restoration. We partner with the Anacostia Watershed to maintain trees that they've planted. We try to do understory plantings. The City of Hyattsville has an invasive removal program where I lead a class the third Saturday of every month, pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID. We also do some stream cleanups. One of the fun partnerships is with the park rangers come out and bring canoes, and the kids get in the canoes and go out and collect trash for stream cleanups. So that's an exciting one. Next slide. So this is a picture of a major part of the park that we work on. For the first, I would say, for 15 years prior to my arrival, there was a lot of work done on the east side of the park. And after I came, we started working on this side, the west side. And these are some areas that we focus on. You'll see there's plotted out where Wineberry is, where the location of our garlic, mustard, and down in the very bottom of the slide, you see where we have the adopt a plot. So that's the little plot that our forest school has adopted. And basically this is the type of map that I provide to the University of Maryland students. And they work every Saturday for the semester, but they are led the third Saturday of every month. And then they are self-led the other Saturdays of the month. And it helps them to develop their leadership skills and that kind of thing. So it's a win-win situation. Next slide. And finally, we have a program that I'm really happy about, and you may have noticed in the video, the fields. Seeing the snapshot from above was pretty exciting. This is organic field maintenance. We started about 3 years ago with a grant from Stonyfield Farms. And we partnered with Beyond Pesticides and Osborne Organics. And we are currently applying all organic to the fields with the objective of this being kind of a pilot program to show surrounding areas that it is possible to maintain our sports fields without pesticides and chemicals. And let's see, and we hope that by 2021, we will be producing our own compost tea solutions. The program starts out heavy on the expensive side, but once you are applying your own chemicals, and once we have activated the proper organisms in the grass, things get a lot less expensive. And with that, I will address one quick question that I saw about Magruder and more tree planting. We need trees all over the city, particularly in this with the ever-changing climate. However, with the suggestions for the remodel of Magruder Park, we are, I don't want to plant anything that might get moved. So we're going to wait for tree planting. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Marita for our final slide.
Yeah, oh, good, thank you. All right, so what's next? So naturally the pandemic has, created a funding issue for all local governments around the country. Hyattsville's no exception. So we're in a fundraising mode right now as Dawn continues with her programs, which are just so important because they can keep people involved in the future of the park. The city is also looking for new names for Magruder Park. Magruder Park was founded, there was a deed restriction placed on the park from the donor that limited the park to only white people. So this has been course, a very important issue for the city, and they're going to be addressing that with a renaming. And then I think the demographic changes around Hyattsville, for instance, there's going to be a townhome development right next door to the park, as well as new Latino residents continue to move into the area. So things are changing. There's more families close to the park. Income is growing, wealthier on the other hand. So there's a lot of changes. So we want to accommodate these with the future planning for the park. And I think that's it. So we can take some questions. Looks like we've got about 5 minutes, I think, hopefully 4 minutes.
Okay, so we have a question here that says that video was so positive. That was that Tally MacArthur. That video was so positive. What was the rationale for change? Were upgrades the city's idea or the residents' idea?
The city was the initiator of this process. So it was important to the city. They felt that the park might be lagging in terms of the kind of programs and activities and spaces that were needed to address the needs of all the new residents as well as the existing residents. So the city has really been the initiator of this process. Does that answer the question?
Another question, did you discuss increasing native tree canopy at the park, or did you already have sufficient natural shade?
That's what I was speaking to earlier. We definitely need to increase tree canopy everywhere. And I would love to be planting at Magruder, but we need to wait until we start the redesign and really figure out where we can plant canopy that's going to be sustainable, that's not going to be ripped up with a new construction.
Another question here from Tally MacArthur. Any discussion about ways to make the park usable during a wider range of weather? With climate change bringing warmer temperatures and more wet days, any way to incorporate features to make sure it can be used safely and comfortably in light of this?
Well, I think one thing we can do is take it, we can just acknowledge that, yeah, the park is going to be wet for a while until we get the funding to do things such as perhaps elevate the rec center or build an environmental tree house, things like that, that we can just simply say, okay, the park's got a lot of wetlands and it's important that we understand how these wetlands work and what they're doing for us. So in a way that kind of redirects a lot of our environmental programming. So part of it's just acknowledging and adapting to the wet weather. And then also just kind of looking for funding sources so that we can eventually build more facilities that are out of the floodplain.
We also have a nice Trumbull Trail. We have a nice trail through the wetland that we'll be looking to. I think that was voted to be retained, and so we'll be looking to make sure that we keep those paths and that walkway so that people can walk into the floodplain and around Trumbull Trail. And we also, in our volunteer efforts, we continue to mulch paths through the wood line that basically give residents a way to stay on the path and out of the wetlands, out of the tree roots, and stay on the path so that our native fauna can reproduce.
Okay, well, there are a couple of questions, but we have reached the time frame here is 11:15. I guess you guys can share or answer the questions later. They will be in the chat, but you can just close now. Time is over.
All
Okay,
right.
well, thank you for everyone for being here. If you Dawn or Marita want to say something to closing?
If you guys have questions, you can look us up on the web, dtaft@hyattsville.org. Marita, you want to say your?
Yeah, I think I put my wrong phone number in there. Sorry about that. It's 301-270-9673, but there's my email.
Reach out to us.
Also available at Neighborhood Design Center. You can access us there. So
Okay, thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.